Hey guys, Kunimitsu here again. Um, I don't usually talk about this, mostly because I feel my it's not in my best interest to talk about things like this. Mostly because one, I have opinions that easily anger people, so I usually just keep my mouth shut. But what I will say on this, and this is especially out there to feminists who feel it is their duty to get in your face and educate you when really they need to shut the fuck up. You know who you are when you claim to understand what racism is, but you have absolutely no fucking idea what it is because you yourself have never experienced it. You, my dears, are the biggest hypocrites I know. Feminists claim to whine about misogyny when they don't even know what it is. They just like to use the word. They whine about transphobia, which you have no right to whine about that. As a transgender woman myself, I may not exactly be qualified to give you all the details of transphobia, but I have experienced it, and it is not a good thing. But what I can tell you is you have no right to say what is transphobic and what isn't. So don't act like you understand what it is. As for homophobia, bitch, you don't have a right to talk about that either. I have uncles who have experienced it. And guess what? They can say with experience that you don't have the right to talk about homophobia the way you do. Not to mention, back to the first thing, racism. I'm not qualified to talk 100% on racism, but you bitches have no fucking right to talk about it when you don't understand the first thing about it. You claim to understand it. You claim to understand racism. And you can say you understand it all you want. But all you're doing at the end of the day is just making yourself look good. That's all you're doing. You're not helping anybody. I don't see you helping anybody. When was the last time you gave your fucking money to a cause that actually helps to stop racism? That's right. Never. You never do that, you fucking liars. I'm sorry if I've sorry if I started to use offensive language, but I'm fired up about this shit. And like I said, I may not be educated all that much myself on racism, but I do think racism is awful and needs to stop. It does. I'm not educated on it. I can absolutely admit to not being educated, but that doesn't mean that I can't become educated on it. You see, how do I say this? Um, there's a big difference with someone who is not educated and someone who is racist. Someone who is racist understands what racism, understands the things that went on, but refuses to understand. Someone who is not educated is someone who can still be educated and learn these things. They can still learn these racist ideas and be taught that these racist ideas are wrong. They can be taught that they are wrong. And they can be taught a lot of things on this, like what's wrong, what isn't. Like what's okay to say, what's not okay to say. They can still be taught these things. They're not lost. I'll say this, just so you guys know where I stand. I fully support Black Lives Matter and what they support. Absolutely. But where I differ is I feel anybody, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, you name it, anyone can be racist. It isn't just exclusive to white people. I'm not going to say much more on it than that. But my opinion is anybody can be racist. I'm not going to say any more than that because I am trying to keep it respectful here. But what I can say is feminists, since they are just a parasite that doesn't want to go away. Yeah, I said parasite. I'm serious. I don't mind if you want equality for men and women, because there are certainly things that both of us need to be equal on. But at the same time, the feminists I've seen nowadays do nothing to help the cause. In fact, you want people to stop whining and bitching about how much of a pushover you are. You are feeding to that fire. You are feeding to that fire of what people perceive you to be. You want to know why people perceive you to be this way? Because you're acting this way. So if you want it to stop, grow some balls and grow the fuck up. I had to learn to grow up. You know what? I'll say this right now. As a trans woman, I've been called a fairy. I've been called a queer. I've been called a freak, a weirdo, a faggot. I've been called every fucking word in the book. And guess what? I never once let that get to me. I don't sit there and bitch to the UN about it. I don't sit here and bitch about it on YouTube. No. I grow from that shit. I am a strong woman. I grow from that shit. I don't let it get to me. Am I saying it's right? No, it isn't right, and it needs to stop. But at the same time, I have thick skin because I grew from actual... And those people who say they've been through abuse but never actually experienced it, you're the ones I'm talking to. Want to whine and complain about abuse but never experienced it? You have no right to say that. I've been through abuse, and I don't complain about it as much as I used to. But you know what? That doesn't mean I shove it in people's faces about what I've been through. I grew up with an abusive father who was an alcoholic, verbally abused both me and my mother, and physically abused us as well. I grew stronger from that. My father changed, and he has become a better person, and I am proud of him. Our relationship may not be the closest, but it's as close as it's ever been. What I'm saying is, to the actual victims, tell your stories, share them, and it's okay to share them. But to people who are just pretending to be victims when they don't know the first thing about abuse, that's who I'm talking to. And you people are the ones that piss me the fuck off. So don't act like you understand until you've actually experienced it. When you actually experience it, that's when you have the right to talk about it. I don't mind if you give us sympathy. That's fine. But when you pretend and act like you know what's going on, don't. I don't need to be patronized about that, and neither do the rest of us who've actually suffered from abuse. You have no fucking right at all. And it's the same thing for people who pretend to understand what racism is just so they can look cool, just so they can look cool in front of their friends. No. You need to actually get educated on what racism is and understand what racism is. It's not something you'll ever truly understand because, well, unless you actually experience it, you're not going to ever understand it. But that doesn't mean you can't help people who do understand it. And yeah, I'm not afraid to talk about the issues that are happening. Yes, Black lives do matter. Absolutely, they matter. And the cases of Black people going through injustice in this world is disgusting. It is fucking disgusting. I may not be Black or white. I'm a biracial woman who is, you know, I have white and Hispanic parents. But that doesn't mean I still can't sympathize, because there are times where I have been, left out of certain things because of who I am. But that doesn't mean I can't help. I do want to help the best way I can. But in order for us to do that, we need to come together as one, because there's negativity in every community. And you want to know why? Where the negativity comes from? It comes from the self-haters. It comes from the people who perpetuate these ideas that every white person is evil. And I understand that you may have grown up in a negative area where white people may have been considered, bad. But I need you to understand, do not blame every single white person who's done this. And I want people to understand, anyone who blames Black people or Hispanics for their problems is also in the wrong. Because you know what? I've met people who do think negatively about Black people as well, because they've had negative experiences with them, and they're not in the right either. They need to get educated, and they need to understand that not every Black person is a clone of one another. Not every white person is a clone of one another. Not every Hispanic is a clone of one another. Not every Asian is a clone of one another. Do you see what I'm getting at? I've ranted on long enough, but you guys get my point. This is Kunimitsu signing out. I'm sorry for this long rant, but I feel it needed to be said.